Councilmember, you may begin.
Good afternoon. I'm Robert White, Council Member at Large and Chair of the Committee on Government Operations and Facilities. Today is May 26, 2021, and we are meeting remotely via YouTube. The time is now 3:01 p.m. and I'm calling to order this public roundtable of the committee. Today, we will be reviewing 5 proposed resolutions, PR 24-219, the Commission on Human Rights, Commission on Human Rights Adam Mayer Confirmation Resolution of 2021, PR 24-220, the Commission on Human Rights Winter Allen Confirmation Resolution of 2021, PR 24-239, the Commission on Human Rights Anika Simpson Confirmation Resolution of 2021, the PR 24-241, the Commission on Human Rights Lauren Lowry Confirmation Resolution of 2021, and PR 24-242, the Commission on Human Rights Maria Burnett Confirmation Resolution of 2021. These resolutions would confirm the appointment or reappointment of mayoral nominees to the Commission on Human Rights. The Commission is a formal adjudicative body made up of 15 volunteer commissioners who play a vital role in responding to unlawful discrimination. Our Human Rights Act is one of the strongest and most comprehensive anti-discrimination laws in the country, and enforcing it is challenging work. It gives complainants a couple different paths to address any unlawful discrimination they've endured in the areas of housing, employment, public accommodations, and educational institutions. One path leads through the court system, which is difficult to navigate without an expensive attorney. The other involves the Commission and the Office of Human Rights, or OHR, which are supposed to be more accessible while still providing meaningful redress and due process. When OHR receives an inquiry about potentially unlawful discrimination under the Human Rights Act or various other laws, they begin a process of intake, mediation, and investigation. OHR ultimately determines whether there is probable cause to believe that unlawful discrimination has taken place and issues a letter of determination. A formal letter of determination of probable cause shifts the case from OHR's Enforcement Division over to the Commission. Full-time administrative law judges employed by the Commission hold hearings and develop detailed recommended decisions. But the job of finalizing each decision falls to a panel of commissioners. Appointed by the mayor for 3-year terms, commissioners should function somewhat like jury members in that they are neutral fact finders, not beholden to the district government. However, they must have a demonstrated background or interest in the human rights. Today's nominees, taken together, bring to bear a wealth of prior experience in matters of housing, educational institutions, and employment, 3 of the 4 main settings where our Human Rights Act prohibits discrimination. PR 24-219 would reappoint Adam Mayer. Commissioner Mayer's day job is with Pathways to Housing DC, where he serves as the Director of Housing. Over nearly a decade, he has facilitated hundreds of housing placements and worked to improve district residents' lives through a housing first model that prioritizes getting our neighbors into homes. Prior to joining Pathways, he worked as a council staff member, including 20 years with the Committee on Public Works and the Environment, 4 years with the Committee on Human Services, and 4 years in council members' personal offices, including a time as Chief of Staff. PR 24-220 would reappoint Commissioner Winter Allen. Commissioner Allen is also an experienced advocate. In the 15 years since she graduated law school, Commissioner Allen has worked as an attorney for the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, has served on the district's Public Employee Relations Board, and has become a law firm partner whose practice includes federal employment discrimination cases, union disputes, and other workplace law matters. By far, the largest number of cases that OHR receives are employment cases. So it is fitting that the mayor has nominated someone with a range of experiences in employment law. PR 24-239 would reappoint Commissioner Anika Simpson. Dr. Simpson is the founding coordinator of the Women's and Gender Studies program at Morgan State University in Baltimore, as well as an associate professor in the Department of Philosophy and Religious Studies. Her teaching and scholarship focus in significant part on race, gender, and sexuality. She has also dedicated her efforts to LGBTQ organizing both on and off campus, having co-chaired both the 40,000 person Equality March for Unity and Pride in 2017, and the National Black Justice Coalition's HBCU LGBTQ Equality Advisory Council. PR 24-241 would appoint Ms. Lauren Lowry as a new commissioner. Ms. Lowry works for the National League of Cities, directing the Housing and Community Development Program at the Center for City Solutions. She has significant experience in municipal government, having worked in multiple Southern cities before coming to DC. Finally, PR 24-242 would appoint Maria Burnett as a new commissioner. Ms. Burnett is a senior associate with the Africa program of the Center for Strategic and International Studies, a national security think tank. An accomplished attorney with a focus on international human rights, Ms. Burnett has split her time between DC and various cities abroad, including a lengthy stint in Kampala with Human Rights Watch. The committee has also been referred PR 24-240 for review, which would have appointed Dr. Andrew Michaels as a new commissioner. The mayor's office has let us know that Dr. Michaels has accepted another position in the district government and is withdrawing from consideration for the commission. Given the number of returning commissioners and nominees we have before us today, I would like to have a productive discussion about the ways the commission can function more effectively. I trust that their experience serving on the commission and in the community will allow us to have a frank conversation about any areas for improvement. And I want to thank everyone for joining us today. Before we begin hearing testimony, I want to, I don't think we have any public witnesses for this, so let me confirm that. Oh no, we do have, I think, at least one public witness, so my apologies. Before we start the hearing, everyone should have received a copy of the witness list yesterday. I will call those witnesses to testify. When I call you, staff will promote you to a witness so that you can testify. When you are promoted, you will drop out of the hearing momentarily and come back in as a panelist. Public witnesses are provided 4 minutes to testify. So I will now call up our single witness whose name is not on the agenda. So I'm asking staff to send me that name because I can't remember it from earlier. Christy Onyechi is our only public witness today. Now we'll give her a moment to join. Welcome back. Good to see you again. You are on mute.
Thank you so much, first of all, for understanding earlier. I really apologize.
No problem at all.
Getting everything confused. Okay, I'm the only public witness. Wow. Okay, and I just want to let you know, Councilman, that what I'm about to say, I may be pretty blunt, but that's what testifying is about, correct? And it's about, just telling you straight up what has been taking place.
Absolutely.
Okay, so, well, thank you for having me today. My name is Christy Onyechi. Should I turn down? Can you hear me clearly, or is the background noise bothering you?
I can hear you. If you're able to turn down the background noise, it'd be helpful.
Okay. Okay.
Wonderful.
All right. I apologize. My name is Christy Onyechi, and I am from Lowell, Massachusetts, and a graduate of Morgan State University. I've overcome a lot of obstacles in my life, and I've slayed many giants. And however, this one so far has been the biggest. I have no doubt, however, this issue will also be resolved. In 2008, while getting ready for a kidney transplant, at the time, mind you, I am getting ready for a kidney transplant and I'm also focusing on my career. I came to DC to achieve my goals. I've always been a high achiever. I graduated cum laude from Morgan State. And during this time, while away, I basically, while away during my appointments, I realized that my apartment had been being entered numerous times. I would come back from appointments, kidney appointments, and find clothes torn, food eaten, things broken, items stolen. And I even came home one day and found my cat poisoned, as well as a butcher knife on my bed. So during this time, I had contacted DC police, which DC police took the weapon that was found in my apartment. While living here for 3 years, I also was receiving notifications from DC Water saying your water is being turned off. I then thought it was something normal for the building. And I do want to also tell you, while on my kidney transplant, I was given something called a voucher. I did not know what a voucher was. However, I was given this voucher and told because I received a kidney transplant, this would help me during my recovery period because I was not working at the time. So I did not realize, not being from DC and learning DC, I did not realize that compared to Massachusetts, where I'm from, Boston and DC, a voucher is almost like, based on my experience, a trap. They basically, as an African-American woman, after I received this voucher, it's almost like my civil rights went out the window. I would complain to my property building about my building being entered, things being stolen out of my property building. And there was a resident that had been calling me numerous times that lives right above me, claiming to me that he worked for DC police. This resident I found this resident would contact me, tell me that DC police work with him, that my technology in my apartment, such as my television, my phones would be hacked. And this man had direct contact to police, no matter what I'm watching, what music I'm listening to, what I'm reading. I found out that my technology in my apartment had been hacked. If I was reading something regarding Black Lives Matter, all of a sudden there would be sirens. I have police officers that are literally parked outside of my building. I literally timed it every 2 minutes and 12 seconds, a police officer comes by, not arresting anybody, not taking care of anything, just having a joyride, blowing their sirens. I then realized that my phone was tapped. This resident above me, who identified himself as apartment 1228, would call me and repeat back conversations I was having with my mother verbatim. This resident also would hack my emails. I would be contacting, this was going on during the pandemic. And if you can imagine, during the pandemic, while just having a kidney transplant, not being able to reach out to someone directly to contact because everyone's inside, basically dealing with the fact that I was not able to resolve these issues, contacting police. I would contact 911, police would not show up to my apartment. And on top of this, mind you, this resident would contact me, describing to me what I was wearing, what I was eating, what I was watching. He then informed me that he put a camera in my smart television, I was receiving text messages saying, I'm watching you on television. So then I realized, I tried to unplug my television, found out, basically I started doing research that this is actually something that is not uncommon in DC. I found out that DC police entered my apartment while I was not home. I do not have a record. I've never been arrested. And they basically have been doing a watch on me. I don't know if it's based as an African-American woman, if it's something that is done, is a common practice here. But I realize now that I live below the Mason-Dixon line, this is the South, that there is generational racism that has taken place here in DC. However, I also realized when I leave my apartment, I have been followed multiple times by multiple cars. I have video, audio, voicemails of all of the footage that I've collected. I've also changed my cell phone number 12 times in a 3-month period. This resident was using certain technology to obtain my cell phone number illegally and multiple times. he had no shame in informing me that he was working with DC police. I also would come home from the grocery store and find notes slipped under my door, such as saying, "Proud, proud boys," from my neighbors across the hall. I then realized, having this voucher, I believe I was strategically placed in an apartment where there is basically where not only am I being suppressed, but I've been being harassed, sexually exploited, being watched in my apartment, and not being able to reach out to anyone who is supposed to help. I stopped contacting DC police because how can you complain to the police about the police? You can't do that. So I then started doing research. I found out about the DC Council, and I started to watch all of you guys' meetings. That's when I found out that Councilman McDuffie was my councilman, and I started reading up on you as well. I also requested a meeting with you. I don't know if you received that, but I got an email from your legal assistant who told me it takes about a 3-day period, and that was 3 weeks ago. So I'm someone who's always been determined. I'm not someone who is going to let generational racism in a city that I came to for opportunity stunt my growth and stunt my goals and stunt my opportunities. After hearing my testimony, I do have a lot more to say, but I'm going to end it there. But after hearing this testimony, I do hope today I will be able to directly receive the help that I'm supposed to receive. Now, being a Washingtonian and a legal resident of the city, I still think it's a beautiful city, but I do not want the illegal activity that has been taking place to basically stunt any goal that I have set for myself.
I'm sorry, Ms. Onyechi. We've about doubled the time we generally.
Oh, I'm all done. I'm all done. Yeah.
I appreciate it. So a number of things that we're happy to try to help sort through. So you believe that some of the things that you're experiencing are because you have a housing voucher?
I honestly didn't think that had anything to do with it, but after doing research in DC, it's almost like I see the way African Americans are treated, especially those who live in housing. I actually did some research on DCHA. I reported to DCHA what was taking place. You should see the email I received back from DCHA. I actually have a copy of that email. It's almost like a child wrote it. Like, "Oh, we don't handle situations like this. You will probably have to contact the police." And they're the one who gave me the voucher. So honestly, it's kind of like, I feel like the voucher is like a black hole. It's almost like you get this, and it's housing is an outlet to wealth. I mean, housing, wherever someone lives, is an outlet to developing wealth and all that. And I feel like I was strategically put in a position where to try to prevent me from achieving certain goals. I got my degree in journalism. I'm a writer, and I've noticed that I've kind of been, they've attempted to close me off from reaching out to the people that's necessary to solve this issue. At first, I was like, why would they be doing this to me? I don't have a record, nothing. But then I realized how corrupt the system is here. And I have recorded so much these past few months, and that's taken place, and it's ridiculous, Councilman. Honestly, I felt like I was in a dream. And I'm like, this is crazy. Like, why is this taking place? And why is this allowed? When something goes on for so long, you ask yourself, is this allowed here? Or is this okay? Even though you know it's not okay.
My office will get more information from you. There may be an aspect here for the Office on Human Rights, although I'm not sure. There may be other paths that need to be pursued, like the Office of Police Complaints, and there may be others as well. So we will contact you to sort through and
okay.
in any way that we can.
Okay, awesome.
All right.
I really appreciate it so much. I also have a receipt from you, from your office, basically after I requested a meeting with you as well, but that was like 3 weeks ago.
Okay, I apologize if there was a issue getting in touch with me or my staff. I apologize, and we will.
No problem.
We'll address that.
Thank you for listening to my testimony, Councilman.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us.
Bye-bye.
Take care. As Ms. Onyechi was our only public witness today, we are going to move to our nominees. It is the practice of the committee to put our nominees under oath. And so I'm going to wait for all of our nominees to join us, and we will begin that way. There we are. I think we have everyone. Welcome. Good to have everyone with us today. Not sure if you heard me just a moment ago, but it's the practice of this committee to put our government witnesses under oath. So I'm going to ask that all of you raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you are about to provide to the committee on facilities, on government operations and facilities is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Yes, I do.
Wonderful. Thank you very, very much. So I am going to now recognize all of our nominees. And I know that Adam Mayer is the first on our list. So we will go in the order on the agenda for the roundtable. So we'll start with Mr. Mayer.
Good afternoon, Chairperson White. Good to see you again. Members of the committee and council staff. My name is Adam Mayer, and I'm here today to present testimony as a Mayor Bowser's nominee to serve on the District of Columbia Commission on Human Rights. I want to begin by saying that it was an honor to be nominated by the mayor in 2015 to serve on the Commission on Human Rights. Today, I'm humbled to have her nominate me to serve for a third three-year term on the commission. This opportunity to testify today is a humbling one, and to be quite honest, I prefer not to be in these types of self-effacing positions. That being said, I do promise to use my experience, both professional and personal, to serve in a manner that helps to protect the human rights of those who have brought their human rights concerns before our government for consideration and adjudication. I am a Ward 6 native Washingtonian. My family lived 1 block away from Lincoln Park when I was born, and I now live 3 blocks from Lincoln Park. I was baptized at Holy Comforter Catholic Church 2 blocks from the park, and have lived on the Hill for more than 45 years. My roots in the city run deep. My dad grew up in Swamp Poodle. He graduated from Gonzaga High School at the beginning of the First World War. His accounting business was located on H Street and served many H Street businesses. My mom, who is from Chile, left this earth in 1969 while a patient at DC General Hospital. Professionally, I had the honor of working at the council for over 27 years. During these years, I worked for 6 council members, was the staff director of 2 committees, and the chief of staff of 1 council member. In these positions, I oversaw the operations of 13 human service and public works government agencies, and was involved in the decentralization of the huge Department of Public Works into 5 current city agencies. These include the Department of Environment, the Water and Sewer Administration, the Department of Transportation, the Taxi Cab Commission, and later at another committee, I oversaw the Department of Human Services, the Department of Disability Services, Youth and Rehabilitation Services, Child and Family Services, and the Children and Youth Investment Trust. During my time at the council, with great pride in our city and our citizens' advocacy, I observed the passage of our first Human Rights Act and its expansion to include 21 protected classes. Since retiring from the council, I've been the Director of Housing Partnerships at Pathways to Housing DC. For the past 10 years, my team has successfully housed more than 300 individuals who had formerly experienced homelessness, and we have created business relationships with over 150 Washington landlords who now rent to Pathways tenants. I also have been an active member of the National Community Church Homeless, Local, and Global Mission Operations. My life experiences have been broad, and my work and volunteer efforts have always been focused on helping our city and its residents to advance as one, showing unity and purpose and honoring the uniqueness that we all received at birth. This approach to life has guided my consideration of cases before the Commission. The Commission on Human Rights was established in 1977 as an impartial forum for the adjudication of cases of unlawful discrimination in employment, housing, public accommodations, and education. The Human Rights Establishment Act was one of the most progressive anti-discrimination laws in the nation, and it allows individuals who believe they were targets of discrimination to file complaints with the Office of Human Rights and receive damages or remedies for if discriminatory behavior is found. As a witness here at the Council to the need for and the creation of the Human Rights Commission, and now as a member of the Commission, it is my deep hope that we will be the first jurisdiction in the nation to experience an end to all human rights violations within these 69 square miles that we call the District of Columbia. Would it not be a blessing to see human rights violations reduced to zero, thus ending the need for a Commission on Human Rights? Thank you, Chairman White, for this opportunity to testify. I welcome any questions the Commission may have.
Thank you very much. Winter Allen, you can begin your testimony when you're ready.
Good afternoon. I would like to start by thanking you, Councilmember White, and the committee for holding this hearing tonight. And of course, Mayor Muriel Bowser for the nomination to serve another term on the DC Commission on Human Rights. My name is Winter Allen. I've lived in Washington, D.C. for 15 years in Ward 4. I've practiced labor and employment law for 15 years. I represent employees and unions in various workplace disputes, including allegations of discrimination. I'm currently a partner with the Alderlaw Law Group, Washington, D.C. Therefore, I have the necessary demonstrated experience and knowledge to serve on the District of Columbia's Commission on Human Rights. I have served on the Commission since 2017. I previously served as the chair of the District of Columbia's Public Employee Relations Board for approximately 2 years. I have volunteered with numerous organizations in Washington, D.C. During my time in D.C., I have volunteered with the Veterans Consortium Pro Bono Program, Capital Partners for Education for Loving Children, and Suited for Change. In 2009, I received their Fintees Community Service Award. Therefore, I have a demonstrated passion and commitment to serving the community. I've dedicated my career to eradicating discrimination, increasing opportunity, and protecting human rights. I want to continue to serve on this commission because it is compatible with my experience, my passion to protect human rights, and my desire to serve the community. Every day, I encounter people who believe that they've been discriminated against, retaliated against, unfairly denied an opportunity, and/or believe that their rights have been violated.
You went on mute somehow. There we are.
Sorry. I know how important it is to have adjudicators who are fair, impartial, knowledgeable, and committed. I know how important it is for anyone who feels that they have been treated unfairly and/or not in accordance with the law to be heard and to receive well-reasoned, thorough decision. I am fair and impartial. I have acted in a neutral role and have acted in a fair and impartial manner when adjudicating cases between employees and employers. I am knowledgeable because I have been practicing the law that is before the Commission for more than a decade. Further, I am committed to ensuring that people receive fair and quick processing of their case once they are before the Commission. I greatly appreciate the opportunity to continue to serve on the District of Columbia's Commission on Human Rights. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Nika Simpson, when you're ready.
Hi, good afternoon. I want to thank you, Chairperson White, and the committee for holding this hearing, and of course, Mayor Bowser for the consideration of my reappointment to the DC Commission on Human Rights. It is an honor and privilege to come before you today. I believe that my academic and professional background has been particularly beneficial for this commission's important work. I hold a doctorate in philosophy and currently work as an associate professor of philosophy and also women's gender and sexuality studies at Morgan State University. During my tenure at Morgan, I established the university's Women's Gender and Sexualities program. While I do not hold a law degree, I have taught courses in ethics in the law, ethics and values, as well as race and the law in my capacity as a philosophy professor. I recently had the privilege of working in the district as a visiting professor of philosophy and director of the WGSS program at American University. And I currently serve on the executive committee of the National LGBTQ Task Force Board, where I've been appointed chair of the Governance and Diversity Committee. My academic and professional background speaks to my passion around the Commission's work. In my capacity as professor, I require my students to wrestle with questions concerning how laws and policies can positively or negatively impact human flourishing. In both my philosophy and women's studies courses, we engage in thoughtful examination and debate pertaining to the ethical implications of many of the laws, regulations, and policies under the Office of Human Rights purview. Through my professional and community service involvement, I strive to support and advance racial equality, women's rights, and LGBTQ equality through advocacy, education, and scholarship. I am interested in continuing my service on this commission for three primary reasons. First, I firmly believe that the strength of our nation's capital rests upon the robust engagement of its citizens. And as a proud resident of the District of Columbia, I readily accept my civic duty to contribute my time and talent to support our city's continued progress and vitality. Second, the charge of the DC Human Rights Commission fits squarely within my professional and research interests as a professor of philosophy and women's and gender studies. The responsibilities accorded to commissioners have provided me with an exciting opportunity to bring my theoretical and pedagogical pursuits into practice in novel ways. And finally, I would appreciate the opportunity to continue service as a human rights commissioner in order to make meaningful contributions in my new leadership roles. I was honored to be elected recently by my fellow commissioners to serve as commission secretary and as chair of the Rules Committee. The most exciting committee we have is the Rules Committee, of course. We have established three key objectives for the Rules Committee that will have a lasting and valuable impact on the future workings of the Human Rights Commission. Namely, first, to collaborate with the Office of Human Rights to revise Chapter 4 of Title 4 of the District of Columbia Municipal Regulations. Two, to create a Human Rights Commission's protocols document. And finally, to refine the Human Rights Commission's conflict of interest protocol for tribunal participation. In sum, my professional and civic engagements mentioned previously are not only an indication of my commitment to service, but also are an indication of my commitment to working as an affable and collaborative colleague. I welcome the opportunity to continue working cooperatively with my fellow commissioners to ensure that the commission both serves the needs of those who live, work, or visit DC, as well as continues to serve as a model for other American cities seeking to advance the promotion of human rights. I thank you for your consideration and welcome any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much. Lauren Lowry.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chairperson White and the committee for holding the hearing today, and Mayor Browser for the nomination for appointment to the Human Rights Commission. My name is Lauren Lowry, and over the last 2 years, I've called the District of Columbia home, from a renter in Ward 6 to now a homeowner in Ward 8. My journey to the District of Columbia began when I accepted a role at the National League of Cities as the Program Director for Housing and Community Development. In my role, my team and I supported cities, towns, and villages across the nation in finding solutions to complex issues such as housing affordability, housing instability, and homelessness. As you know, the issue of housing has been a top priority for cities, towns, and villages in this nation over the last few years, but even more so during the last 14 months. Despite being actively involved in providing timely resources to local government, a piece of me still yearns for more to not only help cities, towns, and villages on a national level, but also to become more involved in my own local community. As a former city staffer from both the city of Chattanooga and the city of Norfolk, I miss being involved in the community. I miss the community meetings, the neighborhood events, and having an opportunity to engage with residents and neighbors directly. And as you probably read, the bulk of my career has been in housing and community development, as well as neighborhood development. I'm proud of the work that I've done in communities where I've served, and whether it is housing justice or leading neighborhood revitalization efforts. I'm known as one who blazes a trail and fights for community voices at the table to ensure everyone is represented. And that's important because as a Black LGBTQI plus woman, I know what it means to be othered, silenced, and unprotected. At the core of who I am, both professionally and personally, I strive to serve as a change agent who shapes the world and the community through a lens of intersectionality, where we broaden our outlook and ensure we truly see the overlapping identities and experience of every person in order to understand the complex challenges they face. And that is why I would like to be appointed a member of the Human Rights Commission. As the last 14 months have made evident, discrimination is still prevalent and wide-reaching. And to combat this, it's important that we continue to make space for voices that have not historically been present and intentionally left out. My professional career is built on empowering people to become the change they want to see. And I recognize that creating change is no easy feat, because authentic change comes about when residents' wants and desires are realized and the solutions being brought forth. The neighborhoods that I have assisted, which have similar stories of hundreds of other neighborhoods across this country, have been historically marginalized and discriminated. When it comes to community building, we often forget that it is the residents that create the neighborhood. And as I like to tell my intern staff, elected officials, and city staffers, you can create the greatest policy, but if there's no buy-in from residents you serve, your policy will not move the needle. More importantly, to affect change, you must consider the impact of your policy decision. In a field like mine, where race-neutral policies have had and still have adverse impacts on Black, Indigenous, and people of color, individuals who have past incarceration histories, victims of domestic violence, or those who have experienced discrimination because of their gender identity or sexual orientation, it is important to ensure we are truly addressing the root cause. If appointed as a commissioner on the Human Rights Commission, I will utilize the skills and knowledge that I have developed over the course of my career as a housing and community development expert and a public administrator to adjudicate in an impartial manner private sector discrimination complaints brought under the DC Human Rights Act, which prohibits discrimination in housing, employment, public accommodation, and educational institution. And as a commissioner, I will follow the rules laid out in the adjudication process and ensure that the secondary independent review of any case conducted by the commission safeguards the 21 protected traits for people that live, visit, or work in the District of Columbia. In addition, I hope to be active in the Commission's committee, lending my talents and passion to the Outreach Committee to educate DC community on the Human Rights Act, in addition to other committee special projects and initiatives as needed. And as I become more familiar with my role on the Human Rights Commission, I assure you this commission will hear my ideas, and hopefully my ideas will be considered. Thank you again for the opportunity to testify today.
Thank you very much. And finally, Maria Burnett.
Good afternoon to the members of the Committee on Government Operations. My name is Maria Burnett. I want to thank you for holding this hearing this afternoon and for considering my nomination to the Washington, D.C. Commission on Human Rights. I also want to thank Mayor Muriel Bowser for nominating me to this commission, and I'm honored to have the opportunity to serve. I have been a D.C. resident for the past 8 years. My husband and I are raising our 3 young children in Mount Pleasant as proud members of the district. We feel fortunate to raise them in a city that has a strong foundation in non-discrimination embodied in the DC Human Rights Act, and that is working to implement those protections at a practical level for all. The DC Human Rights Act is among the nation's most progressive human rights laws, with 21 protected traits that address the many facets of our diverse community. I would be proud to be associated with this legislation through service on the commission. I have been working around the world for almost 20 years as a human rights lawyer, and I am a member of the Washington, D.C. Bar. I believe I have the requisite skills to contribute to supporting the district's efforts to protect human rights and to participate in the resolution of matters before the tribunal. I formed an interest in how human rights law could be implemented to go beyond an aspiration as an undergraduate student. I spent a portion of my college years at the University of Cape Town in South Africa, just after Nelson Mandela had been elected president. At that university, we were fortunate to learn from fellow students who had just recently been released from prison, some from the very same prison with President Mandela himself, where they were held because of their activism against apartheid. Needless to say, the discussions in those classrooms were often painful and inspiring. And as the students shared with us their stories of triumph over entrenched discrimination and abuse. In my experiences, first as a student, later as an architect, and later as a freelance journalist in Southern Africa, that prompted my interest in studying the law. I eventually attended Yale Law School, where I nurtured a commitment to human rights law through academic research and volunteer legal clinics, including asylum cases and anti-death penalty work. At graduation, I was awarded the Colson Memorial Fund for Human Dignity Prize, which is awarded to a student who best demonstrates an active engagement in advancing the values of human dignity in the international arena. Since then, and for most of my legal career, I have conducted and led complex legal research and advocacy efforts for the international human rights watchdog, Human Rights Watch. There, I worked on diverse issues in East and Southern Africa: free expression, assembly and association, torture, the rights of women, the rights of people with disabilities, the rights of Indigenous people, the rights of children recruited into armed groups, and a great deal of work on security sector and judicial reform. For that work, I interviewed thousands of survivors of human rights abuse, engaged in a broad range of stakeholders, and authored numerous reports and strategized about how to advance recommendations before governments and their international partners. I briefed members of the US Congress and State Department. I testified before Congress's Tom Lantos Commission on Human Rights and before different mechanisms of the United Nations and other multilateral and government bodies. And that work allowed me extensive opportunities for insight into the challenges faced by people alleging mistreatment and discrimination, as well as the challenges for private actors and government officials tasked to uphold human rights obligations. I now work for the National Endowment for Democracy, supporting a broad range of civic actors seeking to promote human rights and democracy in their own communities. And I'm a senior associate at the Center for Strategic and International Studies, advising on a range of policy matters. Over the years, I've consulted for the Fund for Global Human Rights, the Joint United Nations Program on HIV/AIDS, Georgetown University's O'Neill Institute for National and Global Health Law, and Outright Action International. But beyond my work in international human rights issues, I'm also passionate about the human rights challenges in our own city. And I've been proud of the work of the Washington, D.C. Compassionate Release Clearinghouse, where I volunteer as a pro bono counsel, fighting for the release from incarceration of elderly D.C. residents who face acute risk of contracting COVID in prison and who pose no danger to society. That work has only been possible in the last 15 months because of the work of the D.C. Council and their extraordinary efforts to draft and pass the COVID-19 Emergency Response Amendment Act of 2020 in response to the unprecedented public health crisis posed by COVID-19. Through that volunteer work, I was able to secure the release of a 61-year-old man who had been incarcerated since 1991 and now he is home with 5 grandchildren and attending job training. I was particularly honored to liaise with the Mayor's Office on Returning Citizens Affairs, and I continue to support my clients' reentry and continue to work on how to address the complex digital divide facing those who return from long-term incarceration. I'm interested in this position because, as my career has demonstrated, I'm dedicated to the protection of human rights and remain committed to opportunities to volunteer my time and to use my skills for my community here in the district. Preventing discrimination is a critical area for how our city functions and to ensure that everyone has equal access to opportunities and advancement. The totality of this work, both the challenges to protect human rights globally and locally, will allow me to be an effective member of the Commission. I look forward to participating in tribunals to adjudicate allegations of discrimination with rigor, compassion, and impartiality. I look forward to ensuring the work of the Commission that can be efficient, effective, and trusted by DC residents. I will also relish the opportunity to participate in outreach work with the Commission and bring my knowledge of the challenge of protecting human rights to more members of our city. I thank the members of the Committee on Government Relations for the opportunity and their time today, and I look forward to any questions.
Thank you all very much. This is an impressive panel of nominees, so I'm excited about these nominations. A few sort of pro forma questions for the record for all nominees. First, can each of you confirm that you are, and I know you mentioned this in your testimonies, but I just want to sort of reaffirm it for the record. Can each of you confirm that you are a resident of the District of Columbia and that it is your intention at this time to remain a district resident throughout your term as a commissioner?
Yes.
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 Yeses. And can each of you commit to meeting the time commitments of serving on the Commission of Human Rights?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Let me start with our 3 returning commissioners. Have any of you needed to recuse yourselves from any commission matters based on conflicts of interest in the past?
No.
No, I haven't.
Okay. And for all of you, do any of you have concerns about conflicts of interest or the appearance of potential conflicts of interest that might occur during your service on the commission?
No.
No, I don't.
Okay. Let me ask, and I'll go in the order in which people testify, because that starts with the returning commissioners. What would your top priorities for your work on the commission be should you be reappointed, and for our newly appointed commissioners should you be appointed? What would be your top priorities, Adam Mayor?
Well, the first is to attempt to continue to be a good listener. I think it's really important when we're presented with these cases that we do a thorough evaluation of the cases, read them in depth, and that is part of being a good listener. Secondly, I think it's very important that we attempt to help spread the word that the Office of Human Rights exists and that these 21 protected classes are protecting our citizens.
Thank you. Winter Allen.
I would say the main priority would be outreach, educating inhabitants about what we do and how we do it, and thinking of creative ways to do that, because we're at a time where, we can meet with people a little bit faster and cheaper because of WebEx and whatnot. So maybe utilizing more technology to actually get our word out to people, what we do, how we do it, and how we can help.
I appreciate it. And Anika Simpson.
I think, as I alluded to in my testimony, in a second term, I think a priority for me, at least, would be to be shoring up some of the internal facing work of the Human Rights Commission, just to ensure that we strengthen the capacity of the commissioner. So one, by growing the number of commissioners that we have serving and making sure that we have qualified candidates, which I'm thrilled to hear the testimony of the two, of Lauren and Maria today. I'm very excited. And also just trying to develop protocols or bylaws that attend to the roles and responsibilities of commissioners. And as I mentioned, also, as you asked us about conflict interest forms, and making sure that we have a transparent policy around that before there's a participation on a tribunal.
Thank you. Lauren Lowry.
Yeah, one, getting familiar with the commission, the commissioners in the Office of Human Rights. Two, familiar with the processes to ensure that I'm doing my job correctly. And then three, outreach, letting residents and workers in DC and visitors be informed about the Human Rights Act.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, as a new commissioner, I think the first thing is probably learning how I can contribute and making sure that I'm learning from all of the valuable time and input from the commissioners who are returning as to where they see the needs. You know, certainly ensuring that the commission can be efficient and address the cases in an efficient manner. I think it's critical that residents feel they can trust the work of the commission to get a kind of timely response. So to the extent that I can contribute to that, I look forward to it. And I share the comments from the others that I think the outreach work remains really critical. I think it would be really interesting to particularly try to do that with some of the younger residents, some of the teenagers and youth. We have a lot of college students in the city. I think, you know, it's great if we can ensure that they're aware of these mechanisms so that no matter where they go in the world, they continue to also, you know, work to protect human rights wherever they may go or whether they stay in the district.
I appreciate that. I think that we have some strong commissioners returning in good experience in thoughts even before entering the commission from new commissioners, and even some overlap in goals. So I'm happy to hear this. One of the challenges for the commission, and we heard from Commission Chair Aizawa earlier this year during our performance oversight hearing, that the average time for the commission to resolve a case is 15 months. Do any of you have thoughts on what we can do to move cases through the commission more quickly? That's been a top concern that I've heard from residents.
I think that because we're about to implement, hopefully very soon, a case management system, I think that things will flow a lot smoother and faster. I think that's one thing that could aid in lessening the 15 months that it takes to usually bring a case from A to Z.
I'm hopeful about that case management system as well. I know it's a tough nut to crack, so I know everyone won't have an answer, but if anyone else has thoughts, I would welcome it.
Yeah, I'd say in addition to case management, it's very important at the beginning of the process that there's a full understanding that the issues of discovery can take time, and it is not an easy process. So I think the Office of Human Rights is trying very hard to make sure that both sides are presented an opportunity to present their cases, and that is a lengthy process.
For our returning commissioners, and I know that part of your tenure has been a little novel because of the coronavirus, but what are some improvements that the commission has already made during your tenure or terms on the commission? Have there been any changes on the commission's operations during your time?
I think the committees have been working in a more robust fashion, which has been very helpful. like the reinvigoration of our rules committee, and with our new ALGs our adjudicating law judges that have come on board have done a great job, I think, in helping to move along the process and keep us up to speed on the cases that will be coming before us. So I think increased communication has been great. And then just as I said, the work of the committees. I think we've been able to meet a bit more than we did actually before the pandemic.
And I also would add, and this happened before COVID, is that each year we were working with Georgetown University and a mentorship program that they have, and members of the commission were going to the DC high schools, and we would participate in a class educating the students about human rights. And I was really pleased with the response that we received from the high school students there, especially from, I had the opportunity to speak to the high school that I went to, and it was great to meet with those seniors in that class.
Sir, what school was that?
It's now called Duke Ellington. It was called Western when I was there 50 years ago. It was the 50th anniversary of my graduation when I got to meet with the class.
Wow. Wow. That is great. For our returning commissioners, do any of you see any gaps that the commission currently has in terms of experience of commissioners, either personal or professional experiences, that gaps based on the caseload that you receive?
I wouldn't say that we have gaps in with commissioners. I do think we need more staff with OHR, and then also more judges to be able to handle the cases. I think that's where the biggest gap is that we're facing.
Wow. You should be seeing some improvement there. The council in the last budget increased the staff because of the hiring freeze. I think that slowed down the hiring, but that should be moving now. So my hope and expectation is that there will be some real movement there.
Thank you.
The commission typically only gets to evaluate cases that start with a single complainant. But in an area like housing, where even one landlord's actions obviously can negatively affect a large number of people, there's also value, I think, in taking a systemic approach to some of these issues or complaints. Does the commission have any formal or informal mechanisms for elevating recurring problems, like referring matters to the Attorney General's office, or combining similar complaints against the same person or entity? And have you noticed that to be an issue? Have you noticed sort of multiple complaints against a single entity that could have been maybe in another form or under different rules, could have been combined into a single complaint?
In my experience in sitting on the tribunals, I have not been faced with the same entities that are facing discrimination or any of the issues that are brought before the commission. It's usually different complainants or different employers. I've never experienced anything that would systemic issue within a single entity.
Mr. Mayor, I introduced a bill that's now pending with this committee, and it would, among other things, add homelessness, the homeless status to the list of protected characteristics under the HRA. I'm interested, given your both experience on the commission and your professional experience, and your thoughts on any experience or severity of discrimination against people experiencing homelessness in the district. Did you agree with adding this protected class, or do you have a perspective on that?
Well, as a member of the commission, I don't think we are to speak on issues of legislation before the council, but as the director of Housing and Pathways to Housing, I have witnessed occasions when people who are homeless would be rejected before they really had an opportunity to be rejected based on one of the housing discrimination standards. And I mean just the fact of walking off of the street into a rental office and appearing to be homeless. You may not move further, you may not be allowed to make a request to see a unit. You don't necessarily get very far in the process. And that has been a concern, just the visual discrimination that we observe. And I would call that the category of being homeless.
And the somewhat along, not really along these lines, but with respect to housing, the public witness, and I'm not sure if you heard her testimony, mentioned that she thought she may be experiencing discrimination based on her source of housing income. Is that something that that you have seen, heard as a commissioner?
Yes, I have.
Your resume describes some of your efforts on behalf of district residents with disabilities, including the development of an apartment building designed for adults with severe disabilities and creation of a private training program for personal care aides. What are some of the most important ways that you think OHR and the Commission can promote disability access and equity?
Well, well, that's two different questions. I think, the discrimination against people based on disability, that's clearly protected under our law. So it's a matter of our doing the outreach work to make sure that people are aware that they could file a claim if that type of discrimination occurs. The buildings that we opened, both were, it was during the days of the closure of Forest Haven, which at that point, it was the very first time that people were moved from an institution, Forest Haven, into the community. And the benefit of the progressive way in which the district handled it in those days, I think is why right now we're at the point that the district has used local appropriations to house more than 4,000 individuals. And it's something that I take great pride in, knowing that the city council has allocated that local appropriation and the mayor has to help people. Of course, we still have a very large number of individuals that are homeless, and we need to continue that. But I think the district has to take credit for what we have done, because we really are the model for housing individuals that are homeless, and also for developing a good set of standards for violations of human rights.
So your experience is somewhat unique because you spent a number of years working on the council, so you understand, I think, very intimately some of the challenges and opportunities that come with oversight. You now are sort of on the other side, working on the commission. Is there anything that you want this committee to do to help make sure OHR and the commission operate to their full potential?
Well, I'd like to continue our discussions. to be very honest about it, I'm very pleased that additional staff are available, and when I first joined the commission, we had a large number of vacancies, And it's such a pleasure to see that we have the persons that are appearing before you today, and their experiences are such a benefit to the city, as are the other 10 members of the commission. It's I'm pleased to be in this group. I'm very satisfied.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree. Winter Allen, you have significant experience in employment discrimination cases, which by far make up the largest share of OHR's matters. Do you feel like there are any gaps in the commission's collective experience that impairs their ability to render decisions? I mean, employment discrimination is a particularly complex area. So what are your thoughts on that?
In my experience, there's absolutely no gap. Everyone who I've sat on a tribunal with and those types of cases, they demonstrate a lot of knowledge, and they're not attorneys, not even attorneys most of the time, but they're very interested in learning more about the law. And I know that Judge Pearson has done a good job of sending us links to learn more about different types of law, different types of protected characteristics, webinars from the EEOC. So everyone on the commission that I have experience with, and I'm sure the members, they have a great basic passion just to learn if they don't know.
And how have you, I know we spoke earlier about conflicts of interest. How have you navigated this issue in the past? I guess specifically, I wonder if any of your firm colleagues represent people or assist people with OHR claims.
So the way that I've dealt with it is, if there's any potential client who comes to my firm that has an issue that even looks like it might end up before OHR, I have no involvement in it. I am not told about the case. I don't know the person's name. Because of that, there's a firewall in my firm. So even if my partners have a case before OHR, I wouldn't know about it. And I know that none of us have a case before the commission.
Okay. And a lot of your legal career, especially in the first several years, involved advocating specifically for employees and their representatives. Have you had to do anything special to make sure employer respondents who come before the commission understand that you are a neutral arbiter?
So actually, my experience includes both plaintiff side and management side experience. So I was management side employment law at the Teamsters, which a lot of people, their heads explode when they hear that. Even though I work for a labor union, I still have the definitive against complaints discrimination.
Oh, interesting.
So I switched my role when I went to the firm. Now I represent mainly employees. However, we still actually do outside, we work as outside counsel to smaller businesses in the metro area. So again, I've served multiple roles. I've served the role as neutral per and the commission. I've served on the management side, and I've served on the plaintiff side. Okay. And I use that experience to inform my decision, look at things from a more 360 point of view when I'm on tribunal.
Oh, wow, that's pretty incredible experience for this role. Dr. Simpson, your former students at American University judge you as firm but fair, more or less. One of the reviews I read that you're going to learn a lot, but it's not going to be an easy A.
Did you go to Rate My Professor? Did you?
I like to kind of get a full view of.
I love it.
But as you know, educational institutions are one of the four main settings where HRA prohibits discrimination. So what are some of the distinctive ways in which educational institutions can commit unlawful discrimination. And have you seen any of that in your time in the commission?
I've not seen unlawful discrimination occur in my time, but we have spent a lot of time talking about it, especially with my role with women and gender studies. I've always liked to involve our Title IX office and have that attorney come to my classes and talk about sexual discrimination, gender discrimination, sexual assault, and then also making sure that professors or people that are mandatory reporters understand their roles, and then also making sure that students understand if something does happen to them around sexual assault or sexual abuse, that they know who they can talk to that can maintain their confidentiality, and those who are going to have to escalate it to administrative levels at the university.
And how do you think we're doing a good enough job, or is there anything specific that we could do more of to help people in these roles become more aware of their protections under our human rights laws?
My answer will always be a yes. There's more to be done. I mean, yes. I think more engagement, if there's I mean, that goes to the staffing issue, but if there's capacity from OHR and also with the council, DC government, then I can hear this outpouring of a desire for outreach coming from the commissioners to be able to tap into us as resources, to be able to do outreach on university settings, to talk to administration, staff, and students. I think that would go a long way. I mean, universities are grappling with all the issues that we all are in our various capacities and walks of life, and we have everyone, it's a microcosm, and we've got class issues, we have disability issues, we have issues with race, gender, sexuality. They're all occurring. And then different modalities of power that are coming from the president of a university to someone who's working in landscaping to someone who's a freshman. So, I mean, working with all of that, I think it's a rich environment to engage everyone that's involved in the academic setting, both personally and professionally.
And I saw in your background materials, and you testified to this as well, that gender, sexuality, and race are among your areas of academic expertise, and that you were a leader in organizing the 2017 Equality March. Discrimination against trans women of color remains a major concern, even though gender identity has been a protected characteristic under the HRA since the early 2000s. Do you have thoughts on how the district can better protect trans women of color from discrimination and violence?
That's a great question. And I think that's a multi-pronged approach there in dealing with different sectors within the community. I mean, you're dealing with religion there. When you talk about someone's gender and who am I? I'm going to go off on a professor. You probably shouldn't have asked me that question. But when you talk about, I am a woman, like, what does that mean? Or I am a man. People cling very tightly to their own gender identities and what that means, and how you tie in how you behave, and how your behavior and your manner of dress and speech should match what was assigned to you at birth, that identity that was assigned at birth. So there are different areas of life, I think, that we can touch upon to try and have people question in a safe environment what gender means to them, so that when they are in a situation where they are in contact with someone whose gender identity doesn't match what they think it should, that they have the capacity to be able to receive that. But I mean, that might go with the partnerships with universities, as we have already systems in place through like women and gender studies programs to address these issues. But then there's policing. There's many different avenues that I think the OHR and the council could tap into to try and promote the human flourishing of our trans siblings of color who are under continuous assault.
I appreciate that. And I would open up this question to anyone else on the panel, because this is such a difficult issue in the city right now. And one, honestly, as a native Washingtonian, believing that DC is a welcoming place for all people. I've really been discouraged and disheartened over the past several years to see in DC and in the region so much violence against trans women of color. So I wonder if others have any thoughts on what we can do better there. Well, we will all keep working to figure it out. But it is something that I and my committee, the entire committee, take very seriously. So at any point in time, please feel free to reach out to us on any issue, but on that issue in particular. Lauren Lowry, your research looks at a number of overlapping dynamics that affect housing, affordable housing development, financing, climate resilience planning, community engagement, among other things. How do the non-discrimination laws that the Commission helps enforce fit into that framework?
Yes, getting to the root cause, looking at the whole system as to why someone may be affected with housing affordability, from redlining to why someone may be experiencing homelessness due to being criminalized, and what does that mean in terms of actually being able to secure housing, and what does that mean to actually be able to stay in housing, how these different dynamics in which we all cycle through affects one with securing and maintaining housing.
Prior to 2019, you worked in Norfolk, which I had the opportunity to visit recently. Absolutely loved it, by the way. So not long before that, you worked in Chattanooga. How does DC's housing discrimination enforcement system compare to that in other places that you've worked?
Definitely more comprehensive. You know, you're working with different Dillon rule states and home rule states, and in a matter of what people want to protect in their state laws. So in comparison, comprehensive in comparison to a Virginia that does have landlord and tenant laws, but DC has a more comprehensive, also an Office of Tenant, which tenants can actively engage in. So definitely the resources are there. It's just a matter of people tapping into them.
So DC's laws are more robust than most other jurisdictions, but do Norfolk or Chattanooga have an agency that is as robust as ours? More robust, less?
Not as robust.
Okay.
Yeah.
And your nomination packet noted that you're a resident of Ward 8. In one of your performance oversight hearings, our performance oversight hearings, OHR Director Palacio mentioned that she was putting plans back in motion to hold Know Your Rights events in wards 7 and 8. And do you have any other ideas for ensuring that our neighbors in wards 7 and 8 are aware and able to take advantage of the important laws that the Commission enforces?
Off the top of my head, I would try to go to areas in which the residents are, not necessarily inviting people down to downtown DC to engage there. What we want to do is make sure that our outreach is accessible, and that is a consideration to doing presentations virtually give the most bang for the buck versus actually going into the community and working with trusted community partners to really make sure that we are augmenting our impact. So just really thinking how we want to really interact with people versus doing traditional or ways of doing community outreach.
And I think it was Winter Allen and you mentioned earlier wanting to do more outreach. So I think there may be real opportunities here. See you nodding in agreement. So, and Maria Burnett, your resume suggests that sustainability and environmental justice have featured heavily in your career and were still part of your practice as recently as last year. What's your view of the usefulness or potential usefulness of DC's human rights laws in promoting environmental justice?
Yeah, I think environmental justice is absolutely critical. I mean, the right to a healthy environment has been something that's actually been very, very difficult at the international level, and it's been hard to define. It's been really a contested right internationally, and I think what's become clear, certainly over the last several years, even in the United States, is that without that right to a healthy environment, many other rights become impossible, whether that's rights to clean water or rights to health, clean air. You know, it's very difficult for other rights to be fulfilled if those rights aren't there. So I think these rights are absolutely fundamental, but they are difficult to define, and the duty bearers are difficult to define in some cases. They're also very cross-border. I mean, a lot of my work, obviously, largely in East Africa, meant that communities were being affected by, you know, the wrongdoing of perpetrators who are quite far away, often not even on the continent in some cases. So there's a lot of legal work to be done to be able to really address those kinds of rights to a healthy environment. But I think it's absolutely critical, and the US and particularly DC, I think, can really lead in that way. You know, we often see other countries looking to the US for jurisprudence and strong rulings on these kinds of issues. So I think it's great if DC can step forward into those spaces and protect that right.
In a lot of your work also focuses on human rights violations overseas, and you were just mentioning some of this. How will your perspectives on foreign and transnational law inform your approach to adjudicating matters under our local anti-discrimination laws?
Yeah, I think ultimately a lot of it is my work, having been a researcher, right? I was acting in those settings as a researcher. I was seeking out who was behind human rights abuses that were occurring and trying to establish causal connections. So I really was largely a fact gatherer. In many cases, there weren't actual pathways to address accountability, right? These were many countries in which institutions were either unaccountable or had broken down or were non-existent. And so a lot of it was about fact gathering and trying to understand the origin of some of the abuses, and then who could be held responsible, if anyone, or where there were pathways to accountability. So I believe a lot of that work, being on the front line of fact gathering, a huge amount of time with people who felt aggrieved, who were desperate for a solution. You know, they wanted to be treated with compassion. They wanted to be heard. They wanted to feel fairly treated, whether we were always in a position to deliver everything they wanted. Obviously, frequently we were not. I was not there to be able to deliver a solution in most situations, but people wanted to be treated fairly. And I think ultimately, I was very concerned that people leave our interactions feeling that they hadn't been exploited by their interaction with an international human rights organization. And it's easier said than done. It's obviously difficult because there are power dynamics there that make things complicated. So I think all of that work is transferable to this setting.
I appreciate that. Yeah, what we hear from residents is that they want to be heard. They want a fair shake. They also want it to happen more quickly. So we'll keep working together on that. I want to thank you all for putting yourselves forward as nominees to assist the city in this way. And I want to congratulate you on your nominations and renominations. Before we close it, is there anything else that any of you would like to bring to the attention of the committee regarding your nomination? Wonderful. Well, let me thank you all again and thank our public witness whom we heard from earlier for your time and for your testimonies. Those are all the questions that I have. I do want to note that if anyone was not able to testify but would like to have their testimony made part of the official record, you can submit testimony to the Committee on Government Operations and Facilities at facilities@dccouncil.us. The record for this roundtable will close at the close of business on Wednesday, June 9th, 2021. With that, all the business before this committee is concluded. The hearing is now, the time is now 4:25 p.m. and this roundtable is adjourned. Thank you all again.